One of the activities we love to do on the ranch is target shooting. We have handguns and rifles, and because we have a safe hillside area where we can practice, we've had various targets set up since we've moved out there. When we first started target shooting, I built a wood bench that we would shoot off of with our rifles. It was a pretty simple setup, but we had a lot of fun. And there was also another location where we would go to shoot handguns up against the hill using some steel targets. We had fun, but during the winter it got really cold and windy. And during the summer it was hot because we didn't have any shade. I decided to build a shooting range structure that would allow us to really enjoy the activity in all weathers. I found a real cool planning need on the internet. It's called Homemakers, and it allowed me to lay out my concept and get a feel for what it would look like. I decided I wanted to have a pretty good sized shade structure, 48 feet long by 24 feet wide. I went online because I'd never built anything like this before and did some research of the kind of roofing structure that might work. You can see that I had my rafters, purlins, headers, all spaced out, trying to calculate how much wood I needed. I thought that I'd use some of the big logs that we had harvested on the ranch to hold up the structure and put these logs on a 3-foot footing. You can see here how I laid out the rebar structure. I decided I wanted to consolidate our rifle range and handgun range. So I decided to design 4 shooting benches for the rifles and build a 16-foot bench that we could stand up and use when we shot our handguns. I wanted some seating places in the back where people could safely sit and hang out. And I also wanted a little fire pit, as I mentioned, in the winter that we could gather around. So that was a concept. I knew that I was going to need 6 logs anywhere between 10 and 12 feet finished size. I had the choices of some really nice logs to use, so we picked out the 6 best logs. We dug out the basic 48 by 24 area that we were going to put our footings in, and we charged ahead using our excavator to dig out the footings. It took us a good week to get all the footings and rebar tied and pulled together. Once we had done that, we called our local cement provider, Superior Concrete. As you can see rebar here, there are also our hardware to hold the logs. They're called Simpson Strong Ties. There are anchors that we are going to secure the logs to. We were putting in 6 very large logs, and to hold the structure, I wanted to make sure that they were securely anchored. For the pour, we used somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 yards of concrete. Milky, Augustine, and Alberto were there to oversee the cement pour. They did an awesome job at the pour and finishing it. The idea was I wanted to put pavers down over the whole structure, so that's why I didn't pour the whole thing in concrete. Instead, we brought in sand. The more I looked at it, the more I worried about the runoff from the water in the meadow. Even with a 4-inch fall, I decided if we got super heavy rains, it might end up really flooding us. So I put in French drains all the way around the structure. We dug another trench around the structure and put some gravel in at the bottom, then laid the pipe, the perforated pipe, and then filled the rest in with gravel. Now we're ready for anything. In order to create the natural look I wanted, I was adamant that there wouldn't be any hardware visible on the structure. As a result, anchoring the logs was quite a feat because we concealed all the hardware, including the nails and brackets for the roofing structure, as well as the bolts and nuts to anchor the logs. One of the things we like to do when we're building something is to get everything stained before we put it all together. We stained the ends, the sides, the bottoms, the tops of all the lumber. Around this time, I started to put up some of our targets. I gathered them from all of our other sites. One of the trickiest parts of building the structure was setting the logs on the brackets. We had 6 of these huge logs and they weighed anywhere between 800 to 1,500 pounds. So we needed our skip loader with the forklift attachment to set each one. It actually took our framing crew a whole week to get these logs secured. They used a chainsaw to cut the bottoms, and they really had a pretty cool way to ensure that we were able to set those down just in the right spot. First, they measured the height of the brackets and then recorded it, so they knew exactly where to drill. We had a very long bolt that was greater than the diameter of the log, and we drove it into the hole. Then they cut a piece of oak 2 inches in diameter to plug it once they had put the bolt on. So you had no idea how it was being held down. You can barely see it. Once we got them all set, they were ready to start the roof. It was a shed-style roof, and so it tilts back. So we had to have enough fall to take care of the snow. We couldn't get a header long enough, so we used 2 24-foot headers, and we put each in the front and in the back, so the headers would actually meet in the middle, giving us the 48 feet we needed. Once we got all the headers in place, we could start with the rafters. And then, once the rafters got done, we then put in the purlins. I got excited about putting up the targets again, so Milky and I worked together. We even used one of our large tree trunks to mount our dueling tree. You can see it standing there. It's really fun to shoot with handguns. For the roof, I ordered corrugated steel roofing. It's called Corten, C-O-R-T-E-N. It has a really nice look once it rusts, which takes about 6 months. It's a pretty sophisticated product because it's designed to rust just on the exterior, but will never rust through. They secured the roofing, and Augustine and Alberto took all the bark off the trunks. We stained them, and as a finishing touch, we threw down Paddle-Lock sand to make sure the pavers were locked in place. Once that was all done, it was time to install the 16-foot shooting table. I had some extra tile left over from the barbecue up by the ranch house, and I used some oak from the trees that we harvested to create this beautiful table where the shooters stand with their handguns. The other thing that I was excited to set up were the big oak benches. They turned out so nice, and we have another video that you can check out how we built those. Once the table and benches were in place, we brought down our clay target machine and some other supplies. They all fit perfectly. Last but not least, I designed the shooting benches. I did a lot of research at night looking at a lot of different type of rifle benches, and there were very few that I liked. Most were made out of wood, some out of concrete. There were a few that were made out of steel, and that really intrigued me. So I got Tyler, the same guy that helped me with the storage shed that I made out of a water tank, and drew up some plans for him. He fabricated the shooting benches and did a phenomenal job. They were so heavy that we needed the skip loader to unload the 4 of them. 3 of them were right-handed, and one of them, that you can see here being unloaded, is ambidextrous. You can move the seat so it works for either a right-handed or left-handed shooter. I'm left-handed, so that was very important to me. We got them all set up in place and also bolted them down so they didn't rock. These are, in my estimation, some of the best shooting benches that you could ever shoot off of. The gentleman on the right here that you see giving direction is Chris Ewell, our phenomenal range master.
Are you ready?
Ready. And with his help, we started enjoying the range with family members, friends, and various groups who want to come out and have an amazing shooting experience. So what was once a very simple wood bench has grown to be a full shooting structure that we will enjoy for years to come. Thanks for watching.
Oh. You got it? I am having so much fun!